Can the robots help you accomplish immeasurably huge things with little effort? How should brands navigate the current cultural and political climate in which literal death threats are not uncommon? In this portion of our conversation, Danielle's passion and excitement is palpable as she shares her experiences and hard earned wisdom on these issues and more. So, I want to ask about so you mentioned successfully developing low effort, high impact
Oh, yeah.
programs throughout your career. Can you elaborate and explain that approach, what it meant then, what it means now?
Yeah. Oh my God. This is like my favorite thing. Okay, so I feel like robots are a friend, and I will use them whenever I can. And so, for example, at Mozilla, one of the things that I set up when I was working as a contractor there was I realized that they had, you know, all these developers who were using their developer documentation on a daily basis. It was very valuable to people, but there was no communication about new releases of, or new updates or anything, what the developers who work on the documentation were thinking about or what they found interesting, or CSS grids and all this new stuff, and how to use it, and really like the things that the people who write the documentation, what they find interesting is interesting to developers. And there was no communication. There was no marketing around this. It was going to like conferences and having a speaker from Mozilla go and give a talk about CSS grids. That was very interesting and engaging, and some of those people are amazing. In fact, all of like the people I worked with at Mozilla are amazing. But like in terms of getting regular updates, it doesn't help developers. And so all I did was I took all the RSS feeds and I set up a Zapier and I fed them all into Airtable. And every one of them had different tags. And every one of them had pulled in the first 500 characters. And so when I went to every week compile the developer newsletter, all I had to do was go into Airtable, and I could do a search for tags. I could do a search for like topics. All of the things came in automatically. And I just copied and pasted them into a newsletter that then went out to, before I started the newsletter, nobody was subscribed to it. And then it was 20,000 people practically overnight because
Wow.
this was so wanted. And it took me, I worked less than 10 hours a week at Mozilla. And in my time there, I was like creating systems that managed content from across the organization. And you don't realize like Mozilla is utopian in how like anarchistic it is. All the people who work there can have their own individual blog on their own individual platform and write about anything that they're working on because it's open source. And so all these people, like they're not even on the Mozilla domain.
Right.
So I tracked each, as many of them down as had active things, and I would compile this massive developer newsletter every week, and it took me almost no time. And
Wow.
just, copying and pasting into a spreadsheet that then I would get, specific people's approval for it, and then I would just send it out. And that was very low effort because the robots did most of the work. It was very high impact because it really delivered a ton of value. We had a huge open rate. It was really a lot of value. So that's what I mean. Like you can create systems that can do really unmeasurably huge things. And there's never an end to that. So it's just thinking of that more and more. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you have any examples of how that is being leveraged for Outlaw right now?
Yeah, oh sure. Yeah, so I mean, email flows are pretty much like and email flows are both my favorite robots and my least favorite robots because I set up email flows and my email flows are incredibly complex because I have different flows for how many orders a person has placed, what types of products they placed, because if they like flip themselves into a segment, I want a flow to engage with them on a personal level based on that segment that they're part of, right? Because that's what friendship is. Like that's how friendship is and that's how brand relationship is. And we
I
have
love that. I want you to say that again. So, like, you don't have the same conversation with your sister that you have with your coworker that's a
right.
friend, right? It's not the same conversation. And so, creating that same sort of, different paths for the different segments and the different flows. I love that. So, do you mind going into
Right.
as
I mean, like
much
think about like
detail?
yeah, I mean, think about like if you're at a networking event or something. I was at a state of Nevada networking event. And I was sitting next to actually he just graduated I think it was an MBA from University of Nevada, Reno. So we were talking about pitch competitions and uh, all of our conversations were about pitch competitions. I was like, hey, if I want to just come and pitch some bullshit, stupid idea that I have, is that a problem? Like, what if I'm not really raising money? What if I just want to give a presentation because I like presenting things? And he was like, actually, that's really funny. We were going to do this. Well, so if I was communicating with him on a personal level, I would only talk to him about pitch competitions. I would not talk to him about what my dog's names are. I would not talk to him about my husband. I would not talk to him about the trip to Egypt that's coming up. We're only talking about pitch competitions
Yeah.
and about business and finance because I know he's a dork about balance sheets. And and so when you get a nugget of information about somebody, which people do give you by their behavior, right? People give you this information about what they're interested in based on their behavior, whether they open an email, whether they click on an email, what type of email it is,
Yeah.
what subject lines do the best, whether they order a Calamity Jane product twice. Uh, I can tell and I can create a customized experience for the Calamity Jane person compared to the Gambler person. And this isn't really about creating personas, although you can. It's more about creating, I just copy the flow, right? And I just change the words and I change the featured products. It's not like a different thing. It's just
Right.
that it's different for that person. So yeah, so I mean, creating these incredibly complex flows is very low effort because you can do it very quickly. You just copy them. But the problem, of course, is that robots just will continue to robot. And uh, so if you include something that's like no longer true, you
Right.
know, you can get this product, blah, 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 and you can't get that product, that robot's going to keep telling people that they can get this product, and those people are going to get pissed off. And that's something that I still am not totally sure how to fix. But that's an example of a low effort, high impact. I could create 300 flows in one weekend, and those flows would do various things. I mean, it just they would keep doing that forever until you stop
So,
them.
do you mind sharing what like CRM or flow system you use?
Yeah, so we use Klaviyo for email and we use Attentive for SMS.
Okay.
And mostly just because Klaviyo didn't have SMS when we signed on
Started.
with Attentive. So now
And
they
so
do. Yeah.
So you had mentioned using Airtable as well. What are some of your other like kind of go-to, like these are the softwares or these are the platforms? So like all of your digital marketing that you're doing across all of the different socials, like what are you using on the back end to coordinate all of that?
Yeah, so we used to use Later. I love Later from a brand perspective, but from a tool perspective, it's limited. So we started using Publer or Publer, I don't know how to say it. Anyway, Publer. And I mean, I've tried like Hootsuite, I've tried a bunch of different social media. We did Sprout Social. They're more expensive now, so but they really are, I think, the best. But Publer's okay, and it's better than Woof, Hello Woofy or whatever. I have a habit where I like systems and I like looking at product management software, so I switch a lot. I've learned that that's actually a problem for my team
They don't
because
like
they
it
don't
as
want
much as you do.
they're not as dorky about that. But I also use Notion. I love Notion. I stopped using Airtable, but I do think that Airtable is incredibly powerful. It's just not
Yeah.
what we need right now. Um, but yeah, Notion I love. And I have tried Monday and Asana and don't really need those. We did ClickUp. We used ClickUp for a while. I really like ClickUp, but Notion just does more of what I want it to do right now. So yeah. I use Shortwave, I think. Yeah, Shortwave for email because it can do AI responses. So I don't actually, it tracks what I say and it creates a voice style guide for me, and then it can respond to people's emails. So a lot of times I'll just not, like, it'll just be the AI talking to people. And let's see, what else do I use? I mean, we use Shopify for our platform, and I think that that's like industry standard. Klaviyo is also industry standard for email marketing. Um, what else? Oh, Slack. Slack. We live on Slack. Google Docs. I like Google in general. Oh, Llama Life is my favorite time tracker.
Hmm.
So llamalife.co, it's an app. And I'm such a fan that I became friends with the founder because I was like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing ever. Um, I guess that's about it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's a nice
Canva.
list.
Oh,
Yeah.
Canva. Right.
Oh, Canva. Yeah, I love Canva. So that's
Mhm.
okay. Awesome. That's a really nice list. Thank you for sharing that list. Okay, so I want to talk branding. You just said like, oh, such a fan of the product that became friends with the founder.
Uh-huh.
So not that we're friends yet, but we're gonna be.
Oh, we're friends.
Um,
No, no, this is
so
already.
that's how this whole thing started. I was just a fan of your branding. I was just a fan of what you're doing. And so I want to ask you, I really want to spend some time talking about branding. So what is the golden rule of branding according to Danielle Vincent?
Yeah, I read this question and I really gave it a lot of thought. And I think that the thing is, and I also thought about the trust, like the trust thing. None of any of it matters nearly as much as people think it does. The the biggest thing about branding is that it can't be about your theoretical customers. It has to be about your actual customers. You can't just
Ooh.
build personas. You actually have to get to know your customers. You have to read their comments. You have to take things personally. You have to feel personally insulted when they personally insult you. Like,
You mean they all haven't fangirled over you like I am?
I've received death threats.
That's insane. Why? Like over soap? Wow.
The thing is, we're not really a soap company. I mean, and
Right,
there's a,
right, right, right.
in fact, I had to put thing at the bottom of our website, which is what does outlaw stand for? I don't know if you saw that, but there was we live in these times, and some Nazi had posted something about outlaw, and I was so I have a rule, which is that I don't use our company as a platform to respond to current events. But this was a different thing because Nazism is not a current event. And so I did respond to it. And it just was hard for me to, I mean, like when you realize that we're not a soap company, in that people who are Nazis can identify with a company, and then it's no longer just that company, you know, then you're really beyond just a brand. And I did have to realize that we're not just a brand. We're not just a personal care company. We're not just a soap company. I think that we probably would be able to even have a political movement if we wanted to go in that direction. We're really much more of a thing that people believe in. And that's part of the brand. I wanted to have something that felt more like a movement and less like a transaction. And the complexity that I did not foresee when creating this feeling was that, I mean, I just didn't, like, 11, 12 years ago, I didn't, I'm sure this is, this is coming from a position of privilege, but I just was not as aware of Nazis as I am now. I was
Wow.
like, they were a 40s thing.
Right.
And so that really is like, creating a different kind of brand. You have to really think about, and you'll never know until the moment comes. It's not like you can pre-plan these things. It's not like you can insulate yourself against any of these things because it's going to be something. It's always going to be something. But having to address and adapt when it's clear that you're more than just a soap company, like in those
Right.
moments,
Yeah.
you have to go, am I more than just a soap company, or am I not more than just a soap company? And like, I mean, that was something and so I can't remember. Somebody asked me like, well, aren't you afraid of offending people? And I was like, if I offend a Nazi, the trash takes itself out. Like, like, I mean, it just is like, yeah, I'm not going to worry about that. But when you like, that's something that I think if you're not going to be a commodity, if you're going to create a brand, then your brand is going to face some things where it's like, who are we?
Yeah.
So
That's
yeah.
amazing. That is, but once the brand is out there, what your customers do with that brand
Yeah. I mean,
is
I was talking to
really,
like one of the brand managers for Harley Davidson, and we were having this conversation because it was
yeah,
like, I mean, you can imagine, like that's a conversation.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And I was really afraid when we started our Facebook group. In fact, I'm like afraid, even to this day, I will say, due to no fault of the community, I'm like very anxious to go into the Facebook community. And they're some of the most supportive, wonderful, kind people. In fact, they've talked about online bullying in our Facebook group and how supported they feel by Outlaw. But it still is scary to me because of how I'm just worried that I'm going to get bullied, and that's scary. But
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Okay, so taking that, because
Mhm.
obviously, having Nazis want to adopt this brand that, you know,
Travesty.
and we all already talked about like it's not your baby, right?
Right. Yeah, no.
It's not your
Yeah.
baby, but it was created because of this wonderful memory that you have and wanting to capture these wonderful memories, right? And then for
Mhm.
that to be co-opted, and kind of I'll actually use the word perverted, right? To have that
Mhm.
perverted by this different ideology. So I want to talk target audiences, especially since you said if you're not going to be a commodity, if you're not going to just try to be for the, for the
Yeah.
masses, consumed by everybody, commodified, if you're going to
Mhm.
go through the trouble of creating a brand narrative, then obviously that's going to be, for a narrower slice. How did you go about determining that narrow slice? How has that narrow slice, or how has that target audience, how has it morphed as the company, not just with the Nazis, but with the, just kind of in general as you've gotten more data? Especially, I
Mhm.
loved what you said, not the theoretical customer, but the actual customers. That is such a powerful statement that in all of my podcasting guests, nobody has said it that way, that eloquently, that these personas can be so fake, right? You go and you find a
Yeah.
stock image photo of, Sarah
Oh,
or whatever.
salad. Like,
Yeah. And so how have you gone about actually listening to the customers? How have you gone about actually using data to redefine and define what that customer base is? And just tell us about targeting in general.
yeah, so people are very surprised. In fact, this is actually one of the, and we can maybe a later episode, but in fundraising, one of the ways that I knew that I should just end the conversation with the venture capitalist is if I told him my stats about Outlaw's customer base and they did not believe me, then the conversation was over because I knew that they weren't going to invest because they didn't trust my data. And if, and so 50%, like a little over 50% of our customers are men, and a little less than 50% are women. And if the venture capitalist says, well, yeah, but most of those women are buying for their men, then I know that the conversation is over
Right.
because I see the comments, I see the reviews, I see our customers, and there is a palpable relief when a woman finds a scent that is unconventional, that fits her life. It is a bond
Yeah.
and it is a relief that nobody's trying to make her into somebody she isn't.
Right.
And that is very loyalty inducing. And that we celebrate people for who they are at their best. And that's one of the things that I always have as my North Star is like for me, not just in terms of Outlaw, but in terms of everything that I do, I want to always remind people of who they are at their best. And so that's with the sense, that's really what I want to do is I want to remind people of who they are at their best, whether that is an American hero or a cunning gambler or, or a sassy, loyal person. Oh, 5 minutes left in our meeting. If we have to hop back on, anyway, I'm here.
Okay.
But reminding people of who they are at their best is the best marketing proposition because all you're doing is holding up a mirror to them. You're just like, it's the easiest job. You just tell somebody what you like about them, and they're like, I like that about me too. And that's like, what a cool relationship, right? and
I love
and
it.
not being fake, but like genuinely seeing someone for who they self-select themselves to be at their best and being able to say that's like, yeah, you are awesome for that, and
Yeah.
that's really rewarding. And that's one of the things about getting to know your actual customers and not your theoretical customers, especially right now in this, God, I really hate euphemisms, but complex political climate, delicately stepping on those toes, eggshells. So in this complex political climate, I feel like people identify the other side as a way. And I will say I am guilty of that as well. And in getting to know our customers for who they are at their best, I can say that people are not one thing. And that's been, and we talk about this and like our customer satisfaction manager and, you know, pretty much anybody who has any interaction with our customers from our company, we always talk about how much our lives are better because of our customers, because of getting to know our customers, because people who, like in our group, in our Facebook group, I'll give this example. Somebody was saying how they had commented in a different competitor's group, Facebook group, and they had been really bullied. And then the moderators didn't really do anything. And they were also in our group and they said, hey, this happened to me at this other company's Facebook group. And I have to say, I've always really appreciated about Outlaw that I feel like that would never happen here. And a bunch of people jumped on that thread saying how much they appreciated that. And I had, transitioning trans people in a supportive conversation with people from Louisiana with gigantic bushy beards who were individual, like libertarians. And people are not one thing. And that's been one of the most amazing things about having Outlaw is that there are people from, every political standpoint. And some of them are garbage. Like I will say, there are some pretty garbage people out there. But that's actually not a political stance. That's a personal thing. Some people are just garbage. But our customers, the people who are attracted to Outlaw and for what we stand for, I posted something the other day on Instagram and somebody was like, hey, I want to know about, what business challenges you've been having. And I posted a transparent response. And I was like, here's the things that are going on. Here's what happened in 2021. Here's what happened with our costs. Here's what happened with, when we tried to raise prices. And somebody commented and said, well, yeah, you doubled prices. And I was like, actually, we did not. And I responded to him thoughtfully. And he responded and said, oh, I should have clarified. I meant on solid clone. And I said, well, here's our costs on the solid clone. Right. And he appreciated that response because he's a customer of ours and our customers are incredibly thoughtful. So engaging in those conversations, it really has made me a better person. It has made all of us a better person. And I really like that about our customers. And without having a personal relationship with our customers, we wouldn't know that.
Yeah. So I'm really interested in the relationship between or the give and take between robots and efficiencies and scale and that authentic relationship where you personally respond to somebody on an Instagram post that outlines the cost and why their favorite product might have really increased drastically in price. Is that what's the pros and cons and the gives and takes and how do you do both of those things?
Well, we were talking about this earlier, but Oprah responds to some of the comments on her own website. She's not the moderator. She's not customer service for Oprah. But she sometimes hops in and does that.
Right.
And I'm not Oprah, obviously, but I do have In fact, I probably have less time than she does. And I think it has to be a balance. You cannot respond to everybody. But you have to hear who, what people say. And we actually used to have a channel where customer satisfaction would share certain things that people had said to us and about us so that I could keep track of it. It is a balance. But the thing is, and I always was really opposed to AI because I felt like it was robotic and impersonal and everything. I don't like having robots interact when they're obviously robots. But AI has gotten to a point where, with guidance, it can write as well as I do.
Yeah.
And not out of the box,
Right.
but like with guidance. And so that is an incredible efficiency. And it's like, if we weren't to use that, it would be like taking a principled stance against penicillin, right? Like, it just, who cares? Like,
Right.
if it gets you better, it gets you better.
Right.
And that's one of the things that I'm very excited about with the crowdfunding and with the next stages of Outlaw is how can we use ChatGPT and AI to rapidly create these scent concepts and create things that are very dynamic and interesting and unique and off the wall in a way that doesn't require a master perfumer to sit down, craft this experience and all this stuff. Like, these are the things, like, I'm working with a scent manufacturer now who is super on board with this whole concept. And they explain their minimums, and I was like, whatever, that's fine. And I couldn't believe this relationship. I was like, are you kidding me? You're just willing to take my brief and like create 5 different samples from this, and then I pick one like that's like the most aligned with my vision. I could do this all day.
Right.
Like, well, do you want me to like come get a hotel room near your factory or what? Like, I'm ready. I'm here. I'm so excited to move in. Like, and like that idea that we can do anything. I mean, like, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know?
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I
But
look
then,
forward to
but
seeing
then,
what
like,
those
I
are.
love
And
percussion.
especially how it plays in with the strategy since you are, more artisanal, handmade. I'll be interested in what those sorts of capabilities allow for batch, and it kind of a different model. So I can't wait
Yeah,
to see. You
yeah.
mentioned the whale carcass. I can't wait to see what the whale carcass one for
Oh no,
dogs.
I'll send you our video. That was our April Fool's joke a couple
Full
years
circle. I know
ago.
it's hilarious. I love it.
Yeah, and so this year. No, I'm just going to tell you. I don't know. Maybe you can edit it out if you decide that you don't want to have it. But this year we're introducing whale carcass cologne for dogs, now for humans, for people who really love dogs and want to attract them because, you see a dog walking down the street, you want it to pay attention to you. Well,
Well, no,
we
it
have
will.
cologne for that.
That is so funny because we always tell people because dogs will almost always come up to us and are super friendly, and then people will be like, "Oh my gosh, like they're like never like that." It's like they can smell the 6
Yeah.
dogs at our house. They can smell them on us, apparently, and that in and of itself is kind of scary. But how much like dog we must smell. But they're like, they can tell that we're dog
But
lovers.
like,
It's so
doesn't that
that
delight you? Like, doesn't it just make you so happy?
Oh,
Would you
exactly.
wear whale
And you wear
carcass
that. So all
cologne?
dogs everywhere love you. I love it. I love it. Oh, okay. So I really want to ask you about the impact that going from third-party cookies to first or zero and the privacy changes
Mm.
because you were doing such a great job with your digital marketing. And I know on Facebook and Instagram that really relied on a lot of that third party stuff. So, for somebody who isn't an expert and doesn't really have much of a background on that, can you kind of break it down for us and then talk about what the strategy has to be now that the first party is in effect?
Yeah, so I will start, and if you guys have already covered this, like please just edit it out. But the um, the way that purchases have been tracked in the past, and this is like one of the things when I was like, so I know it's hard to conceive of, but there was a time before the Facebook like button. And that time was a time when I was at ABC. I was the person who put the Facebook like button on the ABC website. This was a very huge legal challenge because there's a lot of laws around privacy and entertainment. And then when I actually looked at the code, I realized that it was just tracking, that the like button is just a way to track people who were Facebook. And then I realized that this is just for ads. And so the Facebook social graph, like, oh God, I can't even remember like what year that was. Like, I don't know, like 2009 or something. I was like, oh no, this is awful. And yet it was my job to maximize everything
Right.
for Disney and for Oprah. So you know, and I think that you can't really stay competitive without doing that. So I did fully embrace it, and I totally went down that path. Um, and it tracks. So Facebook, if you're logged in, it has an active open session, and it can track very specifically every single thing that you're doing on any page that its code is on. And those follow through your purchase patterns. And so Facebook can create incredibly complex models about you, and through the social graph, like all of your friends and all of their friends and everything, this huge data picture of what people are likely to do. And it turns out that those models are incredibly accurate. And so if you can show an ad to someone who's almost 100% likely to be interested in that product, then your success rate at getting them to buy that product is going to be really high. Like,
How you got me with the Calamity Jane ads.
oh my gosh, were you one of the Calamity Jane lotion ad people?
Yes.
I love that. I love that.
But what's interesting is once I got to the website, I actually didn't buy Calamity Jane. I didn't get Calamity Jane until I did the grab bag. So I did the
Oh,
mystery bag. I actually, once I got there, I wound up buying stuff for my husband. And so we did Christmas, and that's how I started. But it was all because of the Calamity Jane that I was like, I
which one was
went.
it? Well, you probably don't remember. Do you remember what the picture was?
No.
Darn, because I want to get more people like you. Um, so yeah, so I mean, like that's the thing, is that if you have a high degree of confidence that the ad that you're showing to somebody is going to get them to purchase something, then that's really effective. And so Facebook, their hugest strength was that they were really good at predicting who would purchase what, because they could track somebody not just across what pages they were looking for before the paywall, but like past the paywall,
Right.
they were tracking all of that. So Apple, iPhone in particular, put in privacy changes so that now, unless you explicitly grant it, a lot of these companies can't track you past the paywall. And so the purchase confidence is lower. And then perfect storm. At the same time, there were a bunch of venture funded CPG companies and consumer goods companies that were pouring more and more money into. So the landscape of inventory was getting more competitive. So it was more expensive to reach people, and the effectiveness of the ads was taking a dive. So more and more money had to be put in to get people. And this was just like, like if you, in your mind, the atom bomb, like that was what happened in 2021. And it was devastating. Our cost of acquiring a new customer went from under $10 to, for a time, more than $150. Our lifetime customer value is under $100, like just under $100. So if we're paying
I'm so glad you brought up customer lifetime value. Customer lifetime value is one of the most important metrics in marketing. So students, just know you are going to have an assignment about CLV. I'm so glad that this brilliant marketer brought it up.
Can we dive in? Like, can we go into that let's go on a side quest for a second.
Let's journey into CLV.
So first purchase profitability is where it's at. One, never compromise your first purchase profitability for lifetime customer value, because that is a fool's errand. This is inventory sitting on your shelf. You have invested in somebody and it's just you're hoping that it'll pay off. But if anything changes, for example, if people are no longer afraid to leave their houses because a massive global pandemic is over, then you've invested in all of this inventory of a person's lifetime customer value that's never going to pay off. They're going to go back to CVS and they're going to buy like Dove. And that is sad. And that's where like customer loyalty comes in. And, you know, we've been very, very lucky because we have this focus on the subscription model. We have this focus on this customer lifetime, you know, loyalty and built-in relationship and stuff like that. So we have incredibly loyal customers. But if we did not, like, there would be no way that we would still be here today. Like, zero chance. And so banking on lifetime customer value, people will, like, the smartest people you know will tell you to focus on lifetime customer value. And I say not at the expense of first purchase profitability.
We're getting ready to get into some insanely insightful pricing, product portfolio, and venture capital information, all relayed in Danielle's signature sense of humor. So stay tuned to learn how product portfolios should be like a Mexican restaurant menu, and much more.